Good morning. Welcome, Sean Campus, to another coffee hangout. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. Um, I always forget that here on the West Coast, we are, um, most people who watching this aren't watching it live. They're still asleep. But on the East Coast, you guys are alive and kicking. It's 9:30. It's almost mid-morning. So you guys are actually getting up and doing it already. So anyways, it's always kind of cool to know that different people have access to what we're doing here. All right, so I want to talk about the real reason things are difficult, and what I do know is that this is a hard concept for a lot of people. Um, I don't even know. Well, I do know the reason that it's hard. I think a lot of times we've put in our mind something that feels good, but doesn't necessarily mean goodness. What I mean by that is um, somehow we think that if we could put off responsibility somewhere else, then um, we're going to feel better. But that's actually the thing that brings us calamity. You know, in relationships, in life scenarios, a lot of times when I'm meeting with people, it's hard for them to take responsibility and more and easier, or at least a lot more frequent for them to say like it's these things, it's this thing, and all those things happen to be outside of them. And so I think that it's purposeful that we do that, especially whenever we're not being conscious of what we're doing. It's purposeful because that sense of something is wrong with me comes up whenever we accept responsibility, which that isn't necessarily how it goes, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's not how it's supposed to go. So this is a really hard conversation because a lot of people who are not yet in a place where they're actually seeking to grow and to be more, they want to say, but that's just not realistic, or um, but how is that going to work? Because isn't X, Y, and Z? Aren't these things still going to happen? And all of those questions are the ones that end up keeping us stuck. And so that probably brings us to the first thing: is a lot of times in life there's this code that a lot of people don't talk about, which is you have to just go through the things and get the answers later and see how it works, because us understanding things isn't always possible until we get to the end of that scenario. So a lot of times we're looking for the answer. We want the answer right now, and the answer isn't available to us or won't even make sense to us until we actually get there. It's funny because me and my wife were having a conversation about putting together like a PowerPoint and like what it would look like at the end, and how it would work and how all that scenario would work. And as I'm describing it, or as we're trying to like work through all of that, one of the things that came up was this part of the conversation which we said like we really don't, we might as well just go ahead and go through it and do it and see how it comes out, for us to know what the actual outcome will be. And then we can ask questions from the actual outcome once we've done it, right? And we might not even have questions anymore because we've already seen what the scenario is. But for us to ask all the questions in the beginning will never get us to the final point, because we're going to try to understand what's going on versus get to the point that we need to get to and learn from there, right? So it's a really hard thing. I think it's hard to go into the dark and think that we're going to navigate our way and figure out a way out of it. But that's actually how a lot of things work, is it starts in dark spaces in order for it to grow and get to a better spot. So it's useful. It's useful. In fact, there's, even if you look at like the baby or the child, they don't really have the capacity yet, whenever they're really, really little, to ask like questions that would stop their growth. Isn't that interesting? In fact, I was having this conversation yesterday about growing, and I was comparing, and some of you have heard me talk about it, the peach seed to the person. And they said that, the tree has the more possibility for abundance because it just does its growth, right? Versus we have um, less possibility because we ask questions, right? Isn't that interesting? And I think ultimately the conclusion that we came to was that it's actually we have more potential for abundance just because we ask questions a certain way. It stops our growth, right? So the idea behind this is that a lot of times we're asking so much and trying to figure out really like how to resolve our fears, but we're asking in the form of like, how will it happen? Why will this go? Like, we're asking all these questions, and it really just kind of hinders our growth ability. So, what's the real reason things are difficult? Right, the real reason that things are difficult um, is all about how we focus on things. So the challenge I think that we put in front of ourselves is we start turning things or thoughts and conversations and interactions into meaningful scenarios for us when they're not really meaningful, right? Isn't that interesting? We start turning things that are not so important to us into really, really important things. There's a study that um, I was seeing, which was that people in a really poor country had like the highest amount of, and I don't even know how they get these studies. This is an interesting study and outcome, right? But it drives home this point. They have their TVs are the biggest um, per household of any place, in the world. So they're the poorest country, but their TVs are the biggest. Well, why is that important? Well, that's important because their focus is able to be on other things, right? More than on themselves and the things that they have to be on. And so it allows them to stay in a place that they probably wouldn't necessarily consciously choose. Um, and so that kind of scenario happens everywhere in our world. So that's just an example, right? But that kind of idea where we're able to focus on things that aren't going to grow us more than anything, or yeah, focus on things that are not going to grow us more than the other things that we could be focused on. And so we make things difficult by looking at our fear scenario. And so I talk about fear as being a construct. And so fear is a natural thing, but the fear that we're talking about of like failure and that things will happen or go wrong um, is a construct of looking at what all the other things are outside of us. Like, how will other people respond? What will be my feeling with regards to what other people are going to experience? What will other people see? It's all of those things that start creating a difficult spot for us or a pause spot for us. And it's hard for us to get rid of it because we're not even conscious of it, right? So if you're not conscious of it, you can't change that scenario. And so you're making things difficult by staring at the wrong things in your life, right? You're making things difficult by focusing on a lot of times right now it's pop culture to or psychology wise to say like whatever the word is, or the buzzword is like, he's a narcissist or you have this kind of attachment. Those focuses are not useful to your growth. The reason they're not useful is because all they do is help you, or all you end up doing with those things is help you justify some of the hardships in your life that you don't have control over. Like, so what if I have ADD or ADHD or whatever the scenario is? Does that matter for my success? And some people won't like that I say that, but it's true that it doesn't matter that that's the scenario. If it's the scenario, it's there. If it's a scenario, it's there. What does matter is that you find a way to be resilient, right? And so in those scenarios, let's say that I was using that in a productive way. How would that happen? Well, I can use my knowledge that I have depression or I'm experiencing depression, anxiety, ADHD, or any of the other diagnosis, I could use that as a concept to help me understand the ways that I need to work in this world, right? So I may not use it as a crutch, like, oh, I can't do that because there's a limitation, or my behaviors are this way because I have that um, that diagnosis. That's not going to create goodness for you. It's just going to limit you, right? So the flip over, and here's the answer to, okay, so how do I make sure that I can get through the difficult things? Because no matter what goes on in this world, there are hardships in this world. We see a lot of things that we don't have control over. The person next to you may not be the person who you wanted that person to be or turn out to create the right kind of interaction with you. Like whatever it is, there's always hardship in this world. We know that. So what's the thing that we need to be doing? Well, the thing that we need to be doing is be more concerned with your own growth and potential and ability to be abundant, right? That's the flip over. So if you stop looking at your abundance as a person, then you're always going to have a challenge. That's what's going to create your difficulty. As soon as you put a block in the way for whatever reason, whether you say, oh, it's I have ADHD, I can't do X, Y, and Z, or oh, I have anxiety, so I can't do these things, right? Whatever it is, as soon as you put that in your way, then you're going to stop yourself. If you flip that over and you fight through, and that's where your difficult will come in, is you're doing the fight, and you fight through the idea that says, look, there's really nothing that can stop me. Even though I can feel myself trying to stop myself, I can't really be stopped whenever I'm aligning with my abundance. It can't be stopped. So if we can start switching over that in our mind and be able to say, like, I'm going to roll with abundance constantly, and I'm going to roll with abundance in the ways that I know will benefit me, meaning like grow my mind, grow my heart, grow my service, right? All those things, grow my relationships. When you're focused on those scenarios, then everything's going to change for you, right? So, what we're not probably ever going to do away with is the difficult that's outside of us. What we can do away with is the calamity or the battles that we have in our heart, right? Because those are things that go back and forth between outside and inside. All right, you guys. So, huge deal for you to be able to just look at doing it different, have the right kind of focus, and challenge what's going on inside of your life. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy your day.